Now that this preliminary hearing, so to speak, is over, what's next for Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl?
On your side's Don Nelson joins us to help answer that question. Don was the only local reporter to travel to San Antonio to witness Bergdahl's preliminary hearing firsthand. Don, you were 20 feet away from
About
Bowe
20
Bergdahl.
feet away, you're right, in a fairly small hearing room, a conference room pretty much. The future for the Idaho native who walked away from his platoon in Afghanistan 6 years ago and then, of course, later captured by the Taliban is still in question. I sat no more than 20 feet from Bergdahl during last week's hearing at Fort Sam Houston in Texas. What I heard was both complicated and fascinating testimony. The Article 32 hearing was to determine whether Bergdahl will face a court-martial hearing at a later date. Just today, Bergdahl's attorney asked a military court to publicly release a transcript of Bergdahl's interview with military officials and a summary of an investigation into his disappearance, something he's been asking for quite some time. Even though Eugene Fidel can't predict what the government will do, he says they should be made public because they were introduced during the hearing last week.
I don't have a crystal ball. The only thing I can say is that it is highly likely there will be litigation over this. The stage is now set for litigation over access to those documents, both by us, so that we can make them available to you, and by the media.
What we did hear for the first time in that hearing room came from Major General Kenneth Dahl, who led a 2-month initial investigation into Bergdahl's case. The question everyone wants to know: why did Bowe walk away? The general says Bergdahl perceived a problem with the leadership in his unit and wanted an audience with a general at another post. So he staged what the general called a public relations event. He never came close, as the Taliban captured him within hours after leaving his post. And as to why he didn't take a weapon with him, Bergdahl wanted to remain inconspicuous to the Afghanis. Bergdahl told the general he is remorseful, that he sees himself differently, and never wanted anything bad to happen to his platoon. For the record, the general believes Bergdahl was naive and wrong about his assessment of his commanders. Agree with him or not, that is his testimony. So now we will wait and see if it does go to a court-martial hearing.
I think there were a lot of people who were wondering if there was going to be a smoking gun from the prosecution and all of this, and it doesn't appear that they had one.
There really wasn't, Roland. I mean, they were just the facts man, as they used to say in Dragnet. They presented a case that he deserted the platoon in enemy territory. And that's pretty much what they stuck by. And of course, they called witnesses.
But they only called, what, 3 witnesses?
Yeah.
The prosecution?
3 witnesses, defense called 4.
I mean, so it could have gone much, much longer than it did. But
yeah, I think what was interesting in their first witness was the platoon leader, who described in those 2 months after Bergdahl went missing that platoon went out in the outback and spent an entire 8 to 9 week period looking for Bowe Bergdahl. And when it was all said and done, they were all pretty upset over the fact that
no doubt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But also to that fact, there was some testimony about whether or not people actually died looking for Bowe Bergdahl. What was the finding there?
Wasn't introduced in the testimony. The prosecution, like you say, Roland, talk about a smoking gun. If there had been proof that a soldier was injured or killed specifically looking for Bowe Bergdahl, the prosecution would have presented it. They did not. And it goes back to that 8 to 9 week period that the platoon, some 30 to 40 men, went looking for him. That was the only time specifically that they were looking for Bowe Bergdahl. Were there times that other patrols in Afghanistan were out doing other missions and they were, told to keep an eye out for Bergdahl? Yeah, I think that's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Final decision. We'll keep an eye on. I know you'll keep an eye on it.
We'll see what happens.
Thanks very much.